Hey everyone, this is Jay Thomas with the next chapter of Digital Greed. This chapter revolves around my beginning to trade in the online game I used to play. So let's get right into that. This is the very, very beginning, first time I ever traded. But the point is that these online games actually prove very good training grounds for prospective traders, such as myself. So the main things that are important with this is that some of these economies in these more popular games are extremely large. There can be 100,000, maybe even 1,000,000 people playing simultaneously. The entire player base, maybe 50 million, 100 million people, or even more. So there's a lot of people interacting with the economies. And the other thing is that these markets are extremely fast paced. There's updates to the game, there's changes in dynamics in the game, price changes can happen extremely fast, everything can change. It felt a lot like cryptocurrency trading before cryptocurrency trading even existed. So I feel very lucky that I was able to do so much trading on this game before I even began cryptocurrency, because I had kind of already gotten the psychology of trading volatile markets and digital markets. So everything on this game is, of course, a digital asset. And that was also key to where so many spent so much time trying to accumulate and trading these digital assets that when cryptocurrency came out, I'm like, oh, that's just a natural extension to what I'm already doing. Why can't that work out? So that was a nice transition to me. But learning in a fast-paced market, volatile market was important. Trading psychology in all markets is similar. I mean, it's all people, whether in a cryptocurrency or in a game or in the stock market. People are the ones trading the markets, and the same human emotions of fear and greed apply. And I've learned a lot about that from playing this game that I was able to apply to cryptocurrency and other markets that I trade now, such as the stock market. So that was another important thing. And then the other thing was that in this game, I was able to learn to trade with no risk to any actual money. I didn't have to put any real money into these games. I just started with what I had, trade with that. If I lost it all, oh well. It's not like I didn't lose any real money. So a lot of times the advice is to start trading with a paper account, which is often you open a brokerage account and you set it to just a practice account, and they give you $10,000 or $100,000 to trade with. It's all fake money. Win or lose, you don't earn anything, but you can kind of follow the markets. And one of the things to do with that, though, is you have to pretend it's real when you use a practice account. So if you know it's fake, and you kind of make big trades that you otherwise would not make with that much money, it defeats the purpose because you're not learning that psychology. You really need to learn how to trade while you're feeling the fear and the greed and the fear of missing out and all those emotions that come with trading. It's crucial to feel those emotions. So, and this was also present in this game that I traded, because even though it was a game and it was fake, I'm an extremely competitive person, so I'd always want to do extremely well at this. So it did feel a lot realer to me than maybe a lot of people experience with a fake brokerage account. So that's kind of my pitch for learning to trade on these online games. Don't risk money. Same psychology as other markets, or very close psychology. They're fast paced, and these economies are pretty large. So that's that. So very beginning of this game, I started by playing very normally, so no trading at all. Just played the game regularly, accumulated some initial capital, and then realized that this doesn't just playing the game regularly just wasn't too exciting for me. So I decided on trying to trade. I had seen some other people trading. I thought that was interesting. So asked some of them what they were up to, how they made money, why they were doing it. And I started with much less capital than I should have. I should have continued to play regularly and accumulated more before starting to trade, but I didn't. And oh well, it worked out anyway. So the very first way to trade within this game with the least amount of capital was this, what I call server arbitrage. So the game consisted of a number of servers, 100 or 200, Some were more popular than others because only a certain number of people could log into each server at a time. Each one was identical, so it didn't really matter which one you logged into, but most of the bigger traders would congregate on the main trading servers. But what I would do is I would go on to the less popular servers, go to one location where people creating a certain commodity within the game. So they were training a level, they were collecting certain items. I would stand in one location where all of those people would congregate to collect that item, and then I would buy from them in smaller amounts, so maybe 10 or 20 or 50 or 100 at a time. I would buy those for a lower price than the going rate, not by much, maybe like 3% or 5% lower. I'd give them a fair price, but I'd deplete my entire trading capital. So I call it GC, but that's just an abbreviation for gaming currency. But I started with about 100,000 GC, which wasn't much, but so I deplete that entire amount buying whatever item I was actively trading. Once I did that, I'd take those items to the more popular servers and I would sell my entire supply to one of the larger traders. So those traders would buy from me because I was able to accumulate probably 2,000 or 3,000 of whatever item it was at a time. They would not want to go to the less popular servers and buy 50 or 100 at a time because that would have taken too much time. So I was the one that did that work, spent quite a bit of time accumulating 2,000 or 3,000. I'd go back to the more popular server, sell it all in one trade to someone for a slightly higher price, and then they would move on to the forums where they might sell to someone that wanted maybe like 30,000 of that item at a time. So I was selling to another middleman who was selling to someone who wanted a lot of that item all at once. And as I kept doing this back and forth, it was a very tedious process. I'd make like a couple thousand GC at a time, but I slowly increased my account. And then I eventually moved from the person buying in the less popular server and selling on the more popular server to being the person on the more popular server reselling on the forums to the people that wanted even more supply. So it kind of worked up that chain to where I became the person with higher and higher amounts of supply and could get slightly more GC per item. And then from there, I diversified into more items. So I started trading just one item, increased that to 5 and then to 10. But this was a process over probably 6 months from when I started through when I was one of the larger traders on the forums. And that was, as I said, a very repetitive process. I started with too little money. It wasn't that creative of a trading method, but it worked, and I was able to increase my initial 100,000 GC into probably 20 or 30 million GC within those 6 months. Or maybe it took a little bit longer. But it was just extremely repetitive, took a lot of patience. But one of the good things was that I got extremely good at mental math from that. So that was one of the benefits of doing that. So then, as I said, I went onto the forums, and this is where you really started to have to compete against other traders because I was not the only person to do this. There were plenty of other people trying to buy low, selling high. In aggregate, it kind of narrowed the spread. So maybe the spread on one item you could buy at 150 GC and then sell at 160 GC. Well, then maybe I'd come in and I'd try to buy at 151 and sell at 159. And then someone else would sell at 158. So it was kind of that kind of game we had to all play. And I probably annoyed people by narrowing the spread a little bit too much more than I should. But I made all my profit off of volume rather than the total spread. So I might make, whereas other traders might try to make 3% on 10,000 items, I'd try to make 1.5% on 100,000 items. So I could buy stock faster than the other traders and then sell it faster because I had the kind of the best prices on both sides. It took a while to figure out the exact spreads to use, the best times of day to buy, because as it turns out, a lot of people actually farm gold in these games. So they will play the game, obtain resources, sell it to a trader, and then they'll actually sell the game currency for real money, which is actually against the game, against the rules of these games, but they would do it anyway. But there's typical times of days where I found out later that more of these people would be on selling their supply, and I would then try to be around those times to buy when the supply was higher, and then I could sell throughout the rest of the day when less of those types of people were online. So that's kind of the very, very beginning of trading. Easiest step, the most boring one, but that's how I accumulated my trading capital for the future trading. Next important part of this game is that there were a number of limited edition items. These were items that were only obtained during single events within the game. So some of those items, when I started playing, they were released maybe 5 years prior to when I even started. So the supply was going down. A lot of wealthier players would buy these items hoping they would go up over time in price, so they were hoarding them. They might have hundreds or even thousands of some of these items from the very beginning of the game, and over time the prices had continued to go up for these items, and a lot of the wealthier traders would buy them specifically to hold wealth. So that was kind of the premise. A lot of people assumed these items would continue to go up in price. There were 15 of these items. Since I'm not saying what game this was, I abbreviate them. There were 3 different main types of limited edition items. One I called a PLEI, one the ULEI, and then the WLEI. Basically 3 tiers of these limited edition items. Some of them were very hard to obtain. The supply was so low that you could work for months playing the game, accumulating GC. It would take months to be able to afford the most valuable LEI. So I thought that was interesting, and this sort of applies to cryptocurrency because Bitcoin being a limited supply, kind of some people see it as digital gold. The idea of that for me started with these LEI, where it is just a digital item, and these players in this game are using it to store wealth, sort of as a digital gold. So there are some parallels between this game and cryptocurrency that we can make immediately. So that was a very interesting market, and I decided that I might as well take some of my trading profits and start investing in these LEI, just in case the other traders were right and that they were going to go up over time. Because once you accumulated enough GC, I could not continuously use my original trading strategy always. Like, I couldn't deploy my entire trading capital and buy enough stuff and then resell it during the day. That would take too much time, or it just wasn't feasible. So any extra cash beyond that, started to just invest in these LEI to see what they did. So that's what happened. And eventually, one of the largest traders of these LEI actually got banned for selling his GC for real money. So one of the issues in the game was that a lot of people would sell their in-game items for actual money, and it was against the rules of the game. So one of these largest traders got banned for doing that. And what happened with that was interesting, because he was extremely well known to have a lot of these LEI. So when other better traders learned that his account got banned and he had thousands of these, they figured that that was a decrease in the supply of these items and that they would probably go up in price. So it was a self-fulfilling prophecy, with a bunch of these other traders buying into the LEI market just because such a large number had been removed from the game. And the prices on a bunch of these did spike. A lot of them went up about 100%. They doubled in price in 2 weeks, maybe up towards a month, but they doubled in price very rapidly. They came down a little bit later, but the idea was that it's a limited supply. Supply can leave like that. People are greedy, selling for actual money. So I thought that was a very interesting market, so I kept with it, decided to buy some of these. At the time of that main player getting banned, I did not have too many of these LEI, but I eventually continued to accumulate them over time, continued trading how I originally did, and that's how it went for a while. I probably spent 1 or 2 years trading like this, and some things started to change within the game and the trading got much more interesting.